Acting President Choi Sang-mok holds talks with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, with all hands on deck to tackle the growing trade pressure from the U.S. In Washington, Trade Minister An Duk-gun met U.S. Commerce Secretary Lutnick for a similar reason. North Korea tested strategic cruise missiles this week, observed by its leader Kim Jong-un, as it tries to send a message to the U.S. while apparently trying not to overstep the line. U.S. President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelenskyy are set to meet at the White House on Friday local time for a peace deal that aims to end the 3-year-long war. We take a look at what is at stake. It's February 28th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. South Korea is stepping up its diplomatic efforts to safeguard its economic interests as the date for the fresh U.S. tariffs looms near. Moon Hae-ryun leads us off.
As U.S. President Donald Trump intensifies trade pressure on countries around the world, the South Korean government is seeking to make its case early to ensure Seoul's interests are considered. On Friday, Acting President and Deputy Prime Minister Choi Sang-mok held a virtual meeting with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, reaffirming the strength of the alliance and urging Washington to consider South Korea's contributions to the U.S. economy in its trade policy decisions. South Korean Trade Minister An Duk-gun also met with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in Washington, D.C., where he formally requested an exemption from U.S. tariff measures. With South Korea currently lacking direct diplomatic engagement at the presidential level, this marked the first ministerial trade talks under Trump's second term. Under the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement, most goods between the two countries are traded tariff-free. However, Trump's latest policy imposes a 25% tariff on steel and aluminium imports worldwide, impacting South Korea starting in March. The Trump administration has also hinted at tariffs on key South Korean exports, including cars and semiconductors. An reaffirmed South Korea's commitment to free trade and stressed the need for a stable investment environment, while Lutnick emphasized reducing America's trade deficit but gave no specifics on potential tariffs. Beyond trade, discussions on industrial cooperation saw a strong focus on shipbuilding. An outlined Seoul's plans to form a government-wide task force to facilitate structured cooperation between the two countries, which was met with a positive response. Amid talks for partnerships in shipbuilding, Trump's nominee for the U.S. Navy Secretary specifically referenced Hanwha Group's investment in an American shipyard at his confirmation hearing, stressing the importance of attracting the South Korean shipbuilding firm's capital and technology to the U.S. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
The 25% U.S. tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods, which have been put on hold, will go into effect next Tuesday as the U.S. blames the inflow of illicit drugs. An extra 10% tariff is in store for Chinese imports. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Earlier this month, U.S. President Donald Trump put a pause on his plans to impose 25% tariffs on imports coming in from Canada and Mexico. This would allow the two neighboring countries to negotiate a deal to possibly avoid a tariff war in the region. However, Trump on Thursday announced that those tariffs will take effect on March 4th as his administration sees insufficient progress being made to curb the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. from bordering countries. A White House official also noted that while migration issues have seen improvements, there are still concerns over fentanyl deaths in the U.S., blaming the inflow of illicit drugs coming into the country. On top of the March 4th imposition of tariffs on Canada and Mexico, Trump told reporters at the Oval Office that Chinese imports will see an additional 10% tariff, resulting in a cumulative 20% tariff.
The drugs come in through Mexico. They come, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them come from China. And that's why we did that. It's 10 plus 10. In 10 case, 10 was there confusion on that?
There was, sir, yeah.
Okay, 10 plus 10. It's a second 10.
Trump also added that come April 2nd, announcements will be made on countries that the Trump administration will impose its reciprocal tariffs on.
And then on the 2nd of April, we have reciprocal tariffs. That's reciprocal, where we charge countries what they're charging us, and nobody should have a problem with that. We have it's reciprocity. It's something that I think everybody I've spoken to said that's fair, and it is. If somebody charges us 25%, we charge them 25. If somebody charges us 10 or 15 or 30 or 70, we charge them an exact like amount.
Meanwhile, Trump's economic advisor Kevin Hassett told CNBC in an interview on Thursday that the U.S. leader will decide on tariff policies for all countries after April 1st. The advisor said that there's a study coming out on April 1st on which Trump will base his tariff decisions for all countries. Mexican and Canadian officials are set to meet with U.S. officials on Thursday and Friday in the hopes of avoiding the 25% tariff by Trump. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
China was quick to condemn Trump's latest announcement of additional 10% tariffs, saying it'll take all necessary countermeasures. Beijing's Ministry of Commerce said on Friday that Washington's repeated unilateral tariffs violate World Trade Organization rules and damage the global trading system. It also pointed out the U.S. shifting the blame for the flow of fentanyl, insisting that China is one of a few countries with the strictest policies against drugs. Shifting gears, North Korea earlier this week tested strategic cruise missiles, marking its second launch since U.S. President Trump took office. Its leader Kim Jong-un was at the test site, stressing the need for strong striking power. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung examines its intention behind.
After around a month-long pause, North Korea conducted a strategic cruise missile test in waters off its west coast. According to Pyongyang state media, the Korean People's Army launched missiles on February 26th. They flew 1,587 kilometers for approximately 7,961 to 7,973 seconds in an oval trajectory before striking their targets. The North State media said the test aimed to demonstrate the ability to retaliate against threats, to reinforce the credibility of its nuclear deterrent, and to improve the operational readiness of its strategic cruise missile units. The regime's leader Kim Jong-un expressed satisfaction with the test results, stressing the most complete deterrence and defense capability comes from possessing overwhelming offensive power. South Korea's military noted that it had detected the launch of multiple cruise missiles toward the West Sea at about 8 a.m. on the 26th, which is being analyzed by South Korean and U.S. intelligence authorities. The Unification Ministry, too, noted it is looking into it closely.
North Korea's cruise missile launch is the first in about a month since January 25th. The government is closely monitoring Pyongyang's weapon production process in collaboration with relevant agencies.
While projecting the missiles to be the Hwasal-1, one expert says the focus is on how Pyongyang mentioned specific reasons behind the missile launch compared to January. At that time, North Korea adjusted the tone as it was right after Trump's inauguration, the expert says, but now it is sending a direct counter message.
A series of messages from the U.S. have been issued recently, and in response, North Korea could have been uncomfortable. To demonstrate a strong intent to counter this, it has deliberately given more details about its nuclear operations.
Though missile launches could continue, in order not to provoke Washington, the same expert added that Pyongyang will likely avoid overly provocative missile tests.
In order to manage the U.S., North Korea is likely to focus more on hypersonic missiles or strategic cruise missiles, which, while appearing less provocative than ICBMs or intermediate-range missiles, actually have higher strategic value.
Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The Ukrainian president is in Washington to reportedly sign an agreement on rare earth minerals with his American counterpart that will likely become key to ending the 3-year-long brutal war. But there are concerns as to whether the deal will ensure lasting peace in Ukraine. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Yun-ji has this report.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived in Washington late Thursday to hold a meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, where they will likely sign a minerals deal that will allow the U.S. to own a large amount of Ukraine's rare earth mineral deposits. Trump has been framing the deal as a chance for Kyiv to pay back Washington for aid sent under the Biden administration over the past 3 years.
We're going to be actually in there and digging our hearts out. And hopefully, we need the rare earth, and we have some here, but we don't have enough. Our economy is very strong, and we need a lot of things that, in some cases, we don't have here.
And in the meantime, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer also made his way to the White House on Thursday local time for talks on Ukraine security. Starmer positively evaluated Trump's leadership in the Ukraine peace negotiations, but stated that history should be on the side of the peacemaker.
We're focused now on bringing an enduring end to the barbaric war in Ukraine, and that's what we must do now, because it can't be peace that rewards the aggressor. We agree history must be on the side of the peacemaker, not the invader.
Details of the agreement are yet to be made public, but it's widely believed that the agreement does not include security guarantees. One expert explains the reason why Ukraine is still going ahead with the deal may be because it ensures that there can be some sort of a concrete relationship with the U.S.
But at the moment, as it stands, this deal is between Kiev and Washington. So that in itself will please the Ukrainians. And I think that is why they want to go, even if the terms do not look to be particularly financially favorable.
Kyiv estimates that about 5% of the world's critical raw materials are in Ukraine, including titanium, graphite, lithium, and uranium, which could be used to produce weapons, electronics, and other products vital in the modern world. Another expert says the minerals that Ukraine has will become more and more expensive as the world economy slows down, but says it's very difficult to envision lasting peace with aggressive leaders like Trump or Putin, who only act in a way they think is in their best interests.
It makes Ukraine a target for imperialist powers. That's what is happening now. Ukraine is having resources, but Ukraine doesn't have the military resources to defend them. And so, as you can imagine, in international relations, this is a very bad place to be.
배은지, Arirang News.
The first phase of the ceasefire in Gaza between Israel and Hamas comes to a close on Saturday, following the final swap of prisoners and hostages. Efforts are underway to pave the path to a second phase, which looks uncertain. Lee Yoon-jin has the latest.
The final planned exchange of the Gaza ceasefire's first phase occurred overnight on Thursday, after days of fears over the agreement collapsing and ahead of its expiration on Saturday. Hamas released the remains of 4 hostages to the Red Cross without a public ceremony. Their identities have been confirmed through forensic examinations and by the Hostages and Missing Families Forum. This handover made possible the delayed release of over 600 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Meanwhile, according to the Egyptian government, officials from Israel, Qatar, and the United States began negotiations on the second phase of the ceasefire on Thursday in Cairo. Key objectives include ending the war, securing the release of all remaining Israeli hostages, and ensuring the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. According to Israel, there are 59 remaining hostages, of which 24 are still believed to be alive. The return of the deceased would be discussed as part of the third and final phase of the ceasefire agreement. Egypt also stated that the mediators are discussing ways to enhance the delivery of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. The first phase, which has paused fighting in Gaza, is set to officially conclude on Saturday. Even with the negotiations for Phase 2 back on track, the future of Gaza remains uncertain. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to return all hostages, but also to destroy Hamas, which remains in control of Gaza. And U.S. President Donald Trump has endorsed both goals. But it is unclear how Israel would destroy Hamas without resuming the war. And without a lasting ceasefire, Hamas is unlikely to release any of the remaining hostages who serve as their greatest bargaining chips. According to Israeli reports, Netanyahu is seeking to extend the first phase rather than advance to the second stage and secure the freedom of more hostages.
이은진, 아리랑 뉴스.
South Korea's southwestern province, Jeonbuk State, is now in the race to host the 2036 Summer Olympics. In a vote to select a candidate city on Friday, held during the Korean Sport and Olympic Committee's General Assembly, the province won 49 out of 61 votes. It beat out the only other candidate, Seoul, which garnered just 11 votes with one invalid vote. Jeonbuk will now seek to host the Summer Olympics 48 years after the 1988 Seoul Olympics, potentially competing with more than 10 cities worldwide. The number of foreign tourists visiting this country has once again fully recovered to pre-COVID-19 levels. According to data released by the Korea Tourism Organization on Friday, over 1 million people visited the country in January 2025. This represents a 101% recovery from the level seen in January 2019 before the pandemic. Most tourists came from China with more than 360,000, followed by Japan, Taiwan, the US, and Hong Kong. Friday means it's time for our arts and culture segments. Our culture correspondent, Song Yujin, joins us in the studio. Welcome, Yujin.
Great to be here, Jongmin.
What do you have for us today?
Well, Korean classical music, Korea has been hitting all the right notes in the world of classical music, as you know, with musicians like Cho Sung-jin and Im Yoon-chan taking the world stage. And the industry is now setting its sights higher now to create a stage for next generation of conductors, not just musical performers. So for this week, I had a chance to see one of these efforts up close. Take a look. Inside this hall, the Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra is full in rehearsal. But today, a new face leads the podium, under the watchful eye of a familiar one, music director Jaap van Zweden. The orchestra has opened its doors to rising conductors through the 2025 SPO Jaap van Zweden Conducting Fellowship. Here, the baton isn't just passed, it's being earned.
To be in front of an orchestra and be with them and work with them is a complete different experience than preparing this in a room when you are alone or just with a pianist.
The 8 young conductors selected through an open audition work closely with Korea's top orchestra for 3 days.
So one, two, three, and then 4, 5, 6. 4 is 4, 5, 6. 4 is 5, 6.
Van Zweden focused on 3 key skills: mastering the smallest detail, knowing when and why to stop the orchestra, and most importantly, how to fix something that's gone wrong.
But we always have to learn that the power is with the orchestra and not with us. We just bring out all the potential. Orchestra don't want to have authority by just being an authority, but they want to see the authority of knowledge, what you know about how to fix things.
These young conductors have already built impressive careers, working with orchestras across Europe and the US and training at top music schools. Yet they seized this chance to grow, because in music, as in life, there's always more to learn.
It's really special that the maestro took the time to praise us. As young conductors, we need that encouragement. It gives us the confidence to push ourselves further. He doesn't overlook that.
Most master classes last for just a day. This program is on a whole other level. We spent an entire week working closely with the music director and rehearsing with the orchestra. Opportunities like this are invaluable.
It's a priceless lesson, freely given, where a legend hands down everything they know, shaping the maestros of tomorrow.
Eugene, so the top conducting fellows will be performing at the concert today. Who are the lucky ones?
Well, among the 8, 3 have been selected, and interestingly, they all appeared in my report. So in order of their appearance, there is Han, who is the youngest participant of the program. He was born in 2000. He is currently the assistant conductor of the Frost Symphony Orchestra. And then we have Park Geun-tae and Song Min-gyu. So Director Von Sveden told the press that the orchestra members will vote on who they want to perform with the most, and they are the results. And the concert just began at 8 p.m. Korea time at the Lotte Concert Hall in Seoul. And each conductor is leading a different piece. For Song Min-gyu, he's conducting Wagner, Park Geun-tae is taking on Mozart, and Han is presenting Bartók. And the fellows share with us that the repertoire was challenging, but it also allowed them to develop new skills as conductors.
Right. Congratulations to the 3 conductors and the fellows who complete the program. And tell us about the significance of the program. What would you say?
Well, so I talked to a classical expert about this, and she said that initiatives like this could really broaden Korea's classical music scene because, once again, it's not only nurturing classical musicians who perform through instruments, but also conductors. So let's first take a listen.
The conducting scene in Korea is still relatively small, so opportunities like this, which do not come often, are a huge step forward. Intensive, personalized training is crucial because every conductor has unique strengths and weaknesses.
And there is another exciting class by a world-renowned musician from Korea coming up. At the Tongyong International Music Festival taking place in Tongyong, Gyeongsangnam-do Province, pianist Im Yoon-chan, last year's gramophone winner, and the Tongyong Festival Orchestra will hold a concert exclusively for elementary, middle, and high school students in the city. Now, this is part of the Festival Foundation's school concert program, which aims to expose students to performances by top-tier musicians, expand access to classical music, and nurture their artistic sensitivity. And this particular concert is scheduled for March 28th.
Learning from the best.
Right.
Thank you, Eugene, for the report.
Always a pleasure.
The Samiljeol holiday begins tomorrow. There are no worries about the cold, but rain is forecast all over the country. Starting from the Jeollado provinces and Jeju Island tomorrow morning, it will spread to the whole country in the afternoon. The amount of rainfall will be 5 to 30 millimeters. Rain will continue on Sunday. This rain will turn into snow in northeastern parts of Gyeonggi-do Province, Gangwon-do Province, and the mountainous areas of northeast Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. Heavy snow of up to 20 centimeters is expected in the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do Province. Please be prepared in advance. Seoul and Gwangju will start off at 5 degrees Celsius tomorrow morning, Gyeongju at 1 degree. Daily highs will move up to 13 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon, 14 degrees in Daejeon, Gwangju, and Busan. From Monday, the temperatures will return back to typical numbers for the beginning of March. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.